All right, everyone, we are going to get started. Thank you again for attending the U.S. Army and ACTE's Innovations in Applying STEM Skills. Today our presenter is Jean-Louis Siguet. And just some background about the presenter before we get going. Jean-Louis Siguet is a former captain of the 75th Ranger Regiment, and he began his work at the U.S. Army's Natick Soldier Research Development and Engineering Center, first as a project engineer, and now he is a strategic outreach leader. So without further ado, Dutch, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. As was said, as you see on the slide deck, my name's Dutch. Please don't call me Jean-Louis, only my mother calls me that. And what I hope to do is give you an opportunity in the briefing today of providing another outlet for potential real-world examples of STEM application inside the classroom. So I am from the U.S. Army Natick Soldier Research Development and Engineering Center, which is rather a mouthful, so we affectionately call it the Natick Labs up here in Natick, Massachusetts. So that's how you'll hear me refer to it through the rest of my briefing. And do I have, by any chance, is anybody that called in, are they from the Massachusetts or New England area, or STEM educators in the Massachusetts or New England area? Anyone? Anyone?
I don't think we have any just yet.
Excellent. That's awesome. That just gives me a whole new crowd of people that haven't heard this briefing, because I do it all over the state and all over the region. So I have a whole new audience of folks. So what I want to do is we go through the presentation. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them during the presentation. We have an hour blocked. I'm going to shoot for about 40 to 45 minutes of the actual presentation. Now, I will happily entertain questions afterwards. But if you have questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate to ask them, and I will try to address them as we move through the slide, or through the slide deck, excuse me. So first and foremost, most people are not familiar with the fact that the Army has a number of research and development labs. Each lab has a different charter. We specifically at the Natick Labs are chartered with all the science and technology that goes into everything the soldier wears, carries, consumes, lives in, or safely lands to the ground under. There's another facility that does just weapons. There's another one that does just ammunition, one that does just rotary wing aircraft. So they're truly government-established labs that are not contractors. It is a government lab by the Army, and ours is our charter, is to support the soldier. So for us, we specifically focus on aerial delivery systems, all the parachute work that's done. We also do nano and micro scale work. We do clothing, protective, individual equipment, so handwear, eyewear, body armor, load carriage, uniform design. You'll see in the lower left-hand corner, base camp shelter systems. Not only do we work on the shelters themselves, but we also are part of the green innovation inside the Department of the Army to use more solar, wind as generation for power, as well as recycling water to make those standalone green shelters. And then we do the military rations and all the equipment that supports them. So for the Department of Defense, for example, we do the same food that's used by submariners and submarines, as well as the U-2 pilots in the upper atmosphere. So that's kind of the breadth and width of what we do. And STEM supports us in all of that development and all of our disciplines that we work with every day. So in that being the case, even though it's a U.S. Army laboratory, we have a number of, in the traditional sense, what we would call our customers. And our customers actually are the breadth and width of all the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. We also work with the Department of Energy, the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and most federal and state agencies, because as you can imagine, if we develop body armor that works for a military standard with small tailoring and applications, it can be directly applied to first responders. The work that we do inside the healthcare system, for example, with our medics has direct application to EMS personnel. So we kind of not only serve all of the Department of Defense, but we're also responsible, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner, all of the environments that those soldiers and Department of Defense employees will either have to work or fight in, whether it be Arctic or desert or temperate environments. That being said, when we talk about the research that's done here at our facility, it is not unlike the research that would happen in the classroom for a basic science project or program that you would have in the STEM education line, where you're looking at defining a problem, research development, choosing the plan, testing, communicating, and then the one loop that kind of falls out of this is we're constantly in contact with our users. So even though we've tested and communicated and we field, we're constantly going out to our user group to come back and say what works and what doesn't work. So the engineering design process and the scientific method that gets used every day in the classroom is still getting used every day in a laboratory environment. And in our environment with the people that we work with on our facility, you're talking on the order of about 1,000 people that are engineers or researchers on the facility that are literally having practical applications of the engineering design process and the scientific method that we learned in middle school, high school, and college every day for the job when it comes to developing equipment for soldiers. So in that, most people just think when they think about soldiers, they think about equipment. They don't really understand the laboratories that support them in order for design and development. So just at the Natick Labs alone, that's the breadth and width of everyone in our workforce of how it breaks down for STEM education. Across the chemical sciences, engineering, traditional chemical sciences, engineering and technology, biological science, and material sciences. We also have a huge focus on behavioral and cognitive sciences because we want to understand the soldier, how the soldier reacts to food, load, equipment, stress over time, both physical and mental. And then also we have other educations that are represented with liberal arts, biostatistics, criminal justice, to address all the other really the shortfalls of what would be the traditional STEM education line that we use inside the Natick Labs. So most people aren't aware that when it talks about when I talk about a piece of body armor, that piece of body armor was developed by a team, and the team stretches the breadth and width from mathematicians to biomechanists to chemical engineers, plastic engineers for the development of the material, the physical chemistry scientists that we're looking at for the creation of the ballistic ceramic plates, and then the physiological and comparative psychology STEM personnel that we have that after we get the item and we put it on the soldier, how does that affect the soldier? So, and I'll talk about this later in the presentation, that we also not only reach out to schools but have schools come to us, and we have intern programs, and we're always hiring to look at the future of STEM and STEM education and where we can really replace our workforce over time, and then also apply a practical application of what a STEM degree would do for you after you graduate college, or if you want to pursue it when you're in high school, and I have some practical applications of that later on in the slide deck. So that's just a quick overview of just some quick screenshots of the laboratories inside the Natick Lab. So moving clockwise, top right to bottom right, there's the climatic chamber environment that we use, microclimate conditioning, headwear, footwear, food, uniforms, load carriage, and then ballistic protection. So kind of the breadth and width of the soldier. Everyone that you're looking at in those pictures all have, at a minimum, a bachelor's degree. A large portion of the population has master's degrees in the STEM fields as well. And then we have a percentage that are also PhDs. So just a quick screenshot of, literally a screenshot of our workforce. So what I want to be able to do is kind of give you a practical application of some of the things that we do inside the laboratories that you could potentially transfer to a real-world example inside the classroom. So one of the things we're always concerned about is soldier load. The NSRDEC, or the Natick Labs, conducted a load carriage study in 2002 and in 2005. In both Afghanistan and Iraq, and found that the average soldier was wearing anywhere from 105 pounds of external load. So normal body weight plus upwards of 105 pounds. Now, when we talk about what effect that has on the soldier, and I'm trying to get the little box to play the media file right now, and for some reason I'm having a little bit of an issue.
If you hover over it, you should see a little play button at all?
I don't yet. when I hover over that box, I get only the file owner can play this media image.
1 minute. Let me see if I can help you out.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you very much. So in this video, this is actually a soldier under load in one of our chambers. And what we're trying to do is show – oh, and I think now the video just got lost. Oh, there we go. What you'll see in the laboratory is that the soldier is walking on a treadmill. We actually motion capture the soldier. And then what you'll see in a minute is we've ripped out the actual soldier. You'll see the motion capture of the individual soldier while they're walking with that load under them. And then you'll see how the skeleton and how the individual is compensating for that load over time. And that soldier actually has what we affectionately call the infantryman's lean, which means that the individual is leaning forward in order to counterbalance the amount of weight that's on the back. If you look at the top of the slide in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a soldier, and that was actually taken on day 4 of the ground war in Afghanistan. If you'll notice, that soldier's looking down at the ground because he's not pulling security. He's actually physically exhausted from carrying that load that's on the back. So what a practical application of the technology and work that we do here is trying to understand what that load is. So an easy example is in order to get pounds per square inch of strike, body weight for the soldier, which on average a soldier weighs approximately 185 pounds. We'll do 95 pounds of load, and the foot strike is about 48 inches squared. So with each step, the soldier is creating 5.83 pounds per square inch of force. Now, a normal troop movement is approximately 6 miles in the span of a day beginning to end. You're looking at about 12,000 steps. So take that 5.83 pounds per square inch over 12,000 steps, and you start to see where we're using actually daily an easy equation to try to figure out how the soldier is reacting to that load and what that load will do over time. So this is just an example that I normally use on the road when I'm out at schools to make people, A, understand the load and the burden that the soldier has to deal with, and then B, explain how we're looking at it in order to try to compensate for it. So not only is it a matter of the load itself, but how the load is distributed across the body and how I can actually make the human body stand more upright and not compensate for that weight, which then directs the force and impact across the body differently. We actually have a team of approximately 25 people that are doing that every day with every new piece of equipment. And then they're using just simple equations that give you a practical application of the equation that you're sitting in your classroom and using to what a real-world answer would be. And tied into that, when you talk about the load and what the soldier has to deal with, the next thing would be, how do I fuel that individual soldier? So when we're talking about that weight burden, the other thing that we're doing with the soldier is we have to feed him or her, and we need to be able to keep that individual fueled, keep the individual machine, the engine, running hopefully as good as possible in order to do the daily tasks that a soldier needs every day. So what I've done is actually just break out an easy rest energy expenditure equation, so you can get kind of an idea of caloric burn at rest and then caloric requirements for the day, and that kind of ties into what we do every day when we develop our MREs, meal ready to eats, or tray rations or hot rations. So I just filled in the male line because it's relatively easy. So using the same numbers as before, average soldier weighs approximately 185 pounds, carrying 95 pounds of weight. The male and female gear weight ratio of times 11 or times 10 is an equation that we developed here at the labs that gives us a good idea for ballpark. And you're looking at rest. That soldier is burning somewhere on the order of about 3,000 calories a day. Unfortunately for soldiers, they are very rarely, if ever, at rest. They're normally always moving, and it's moving by an activity factor. So at the bottom of the page, there's an activity factor of 2.4. That's a scale that starts at 1.0, goes all the way up to 2.4, 2.4 being the most active. So when I talk about that soldier that weighs 185 pounds, carrying 95 pounds worth of combat load, with an activity of 2.4, which is the highest level of activity, that soldier is burning approximately 7,400 calories a day. So not only do now I know that number, I need to be able to fuel and replenish that, fuel the soldier, and replenish that number. So at the top of the slide, you'll notice one of our actual MREs, or meals ready to eat, broken down. That entire MRE, with all of its contents, if consumed, will provide the individual soldier anywhere between 1,800 to 2,000 calories per MRE bag. When you're talking about 7,000 calories, that means a soldier needs to eat approximately 4 of those MREs a day just to be able to fuel the machine in order to replenish the calories that soldier's burning in a duty day. Above and beyond, and tied into that, is where really our science, technology, and researchers come into play. Is that MRE that you see has to be able to have a shelf life of 3 years. It has to be able to withstand 110 degrees Fahrenheit and negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit over the span of that 3 years, and still be as delicious and nutritious on the last day of the 3rd year when I open it as it is the original day when it's made. So the STEM, the science technology, rolls into that all the time, and then a practical application of how many calories need to be consumed every day. And like I said, this is an equation that I normally use out on the road that I provide schools, but with a little bit of tailoring, it would be very easy to adjust to students in the classroom. And what I normally find specifically with my athletes, baseball, basketball, football, lacrosse, those kind of kids, especially at the high school level, they have no idea how many calories they're actually consuming in a day, and they wonder why it is that they feel tired or run down. And we're actually in the midst of a study with a local school here in Massachusetts to try to see how underfueling a student affects that student's cognitive capability in the classroom and performance on the playing field, and how what's the right amount of calories in order to fuel that student, and their battlefield is in the classroom every day, because you want to be able to have them absorb and retain as much knowledge as possible, and then for the athletes that are out on the playing field, to have them be able to optimally perform in that space as well. So when we talk about the science and technology that we do at the Army, at the Natick Labs, and then going out, we actually are part of the Massachusetts STEM Council for Governor Deval Patrick, and part of his STEM Advisory Board. And in that, we host school visits at our laboratories. We have interactive tours where we have visitors that come to the facility and actually get to do hands-on practical applications in some controlled environments that we have at our labs. Twice a year, we do teacher training on our facility that is in line with the core curriculum for the state of Massachusetts. So what we do is we meet with the Massachusetts Secretary of Education, find out what the core competency, core curriculum is for the upcoming school year, and then we tailor our on-site teacher trainings to address those, not only provide products that can be taken back to the classroom, but it counts as continuing education for the educator. We sponsor a number of robotics teams in the area here in Massachusetts. We do a number of mentoring outreach programs. So Natick High School, which happens to be our local community school, their biology department, chemistry department, and mathematics department all have mentors from the Army lab, from the Natick Labs, that go out and sit in the classroom to provide them practical applications of what we do every day and how what they're learning in the classroom can be applied to their follow-on career. And as you can see in the image there, we take equipment out so that they can see, given their environment in the classroom, how the equations or work that's being done in the classroom has practical application. In addition to that, we have internships both at the high school and collegiate level. And then last but not least is we are always looking to employ individuals that have an interest in STEM or a degree in STEM. And really the goal is twofold. In the state of Massachusetts, and I can only speak for us specifically, there's a huge push for STEM. We're a very STEM-focused state, and there's a noted decrease as we move forward with STEM-educated workforce. So we're trying to assist the state in that. And hand in hand in that is we also know that our employees, our engineers, our researchers are going to grow older and want to retire, and we want to replace them, as well as we want young, active minds to be able to come work for us and look at new ways of solving the problems that we deal with every day. So in line with that, what we've done, unlike most other places, is we actually have a very active social media campaign where we reach out through a Facebook page specifically for our laboratory, one that's STEM-focused. We have we have a Twitter account, actually two separate Twitter accounts, one that's STEM-focused and one that's for the laboratory. And then we use LinkedIn to not only talk about what we're doing inside the facility, but also make people aware of job opportunities, and they can contact us through that as well. That being said, what I want to leave as the last slide is my contact information, because I understand that no matter where you are across the country, you may or may not have access to a facility like ours or practical application of real-world problems with soldiers in the classroom. So what I want to be able to do is offer myself as a resource that you can contact me direct and either say, you know, we're studying X this semester. I think everybody's on semesters. X this semester, can you generate a real-world problem that I could use in the classroom and potentially provide imagery or equipment or something like that that would give me the opportunity to kind of give more of a real-world spin on a problem in the classroom, vice car car 1 leaves point A and car 2 leaves point B, and where do they meet, how much fuel they consume, first off. Secondly, like I said, there are a number of other laboratories across the country that do work, and we are all part of the Department of Defense's and specifically the Army's STEM outreach program. So if you have a research laboratory located somewhere near you, I'm happy to try to put you into contact with those folks, and maybe you have a resource close to you that you can either go onto their facility and do STEM training or STEM education, or have members of their workforce come out and do that for you. And then last but not least, any questions or comments that you might have, my email and phone number is there so that you can reach out to me directly based on the presentation. And once again, the reason, and I really want to make sure that I thank the Army Education Team and ACTE for reaching out and providing me the opportunity to give the presentation in the first place. But the goal of the presentation is to, A, make you aware of the focus of STEM at our level, because without STEM, we don't have a workforce. Like I said, at the Natick Labs, we have a total workforce of approximately 1,015 people. Of that workforce, there are maybe 25 total uniformed personnel that are on the facility. Of that, 20 of them are what we call human research volunteers to use in our load carriage studies and some of our biomechanics studies. And the rest of that workforce is folks with engineering degrees and that have been that are in possession of degrees that are in the STEM field. So we aren't the only ones. We want to not only be used as a resource, but potentially provide that type of capability for anyone else, understanding that we know the struggles, because we deal with it every day in the laboratory environment as well, that the struggles that STEM educators have every day in the classroom, and how they can make science and technology, engineering and mathematics more appealing to a younger generation that's connected and plugged in all the time. And we like to think that given the environment in the world right now, that soldiers and the equipment and technology that they use provides a great example. And then potentially be another venue or avenue for you to use moving forward. So I ran a little bit shorter than I wanted, but I wanted to open up the floor for questions that anyone might have. And if no one has any questions, I really appreciate the time, and please feel free to contact me directly if you'd like to find out anything more about what it is that we do, or potentially equations or mathematical problems or real-world applications that we can provide to you in the STEM environment.
Thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate you coming out and doing the presentation for us today. It's really great seeing you bridge over everything that's going on in the laboratory, also within the classroom, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of other CTE teachers will as well. In saying that, this is also recorded and will be up on ACTE Live. So if you are familiar with that, that's where we house all of our online seminars, and there will be an archive version of this as well. And then again, Dutch also gave you his contact information in case you would like any other exercises regarding that were mentioned in this presentation. Right, and if we don't have any more questions, I just want to say thank you again to everyone for coming out. Thank you again to our presenters, to our U.S. Army partners, of course, and we will be seeing you again, I think, in December. That's when our next Army Online seminar is, but also keep a lookout because we may be having one in November. So November and December will be the last few months that we have the series going on, so keep a lookout for information regarding those on ACTE Live.